fear and lack of hope is a symptom. And so when I'm having a really rough day, it feels like this, this is going to be my plight forever. And it's hard to remember that, a week before that, you were not hopeless and you did not have this feeling. And so in those moments, trying to remember, okay, even though it seems like, what if I never get to eat normal or have alcohol again or do all these things, that I won't feel the way I feel about those limitations in a week. I will have hope again.
Welcome to the Evolved Podcast, an open forum on personal growth and cultivating a positive mindset. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick. Today on the show, we have my friend Kendall New. Kendall is a dancer, digital marketer, world traveler, and mental health advocate. Kendall promotes the importance of the mind-gut connection and alternative treatments for mood disorders. Kendall speaks directly to those people who feel stuck or unheard by their medical practitioners. He speaks openly about his experiences with EMDR, ketamine therapy, life coaches, therapists, SSRIs, and naturopathic care. He shared his learned lessons with me for anyone that might be in need. Without further ado, here is Kendall New. Let's go.
As we met and talked maybe 2 years ago, it's all blurred now with the pandemic, but I know you've been searching for kind of what you wanted to pour your time into. So this is a really cool thing that you found and took the initiative to just start doing. So proud of you. Hats off.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a journey and we're going to talk about that. So welcome to the Evolved Podcast. I'm excited to have Kendall New here with me. And Kendall, why don't you just tell me, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and what you're passionate about.
Sure. Kendall New from Richmond, Virginia, where I'm still residing right now. The things I like to tell people, I do digital marketing for work. I'm a dancer and passionate about music. Is kind of the thing that really stirs my soul. But a lot of the conversations that I found myself wanting to share on podcasts, things like that over the past couple of years have been either around spirituality or mental health, alternative holistic treatments, as I've gone through a season of grief and loss and then have been forced to learn a ton about just how to take care of myself. And then once you enter one of those periods, I feel like you just find yourself around like-minded people, as particularly during the pandemic, everybody went through something crazy. And so just the friends that I found myself attracted to were just folks that I could share lessons with or were willing to listen to my story. So I've just been super open to finding as many ways as I can to get better and to regulate my stress levels and my body as it reacted to hard life circumstances. And I try to share those modalities with people as much as I can.
Right. Yeah. And thank you so much for being here and sharing that story and experience with us. Let's dive in. So, in as many words as you feel comfortable describing, can you share more detail in regards to your mental health journey that you
Sure.
alluded to?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting in maybe 2015, my older brother and I became essentially the primary decision makers for our father's health, who was admitted inpatient for bipolar depression, which he's had our whole life, but went through a particularly hard bipolar season. And so he was inpatient, and Colton and I were discovering firsthand that the doctors and hospitals just didn't really have an answer. Once we've tried electroshock therapy and thrown a cacophony of different SSRIs and things like that at the patient, there was really no plan of action. And there are things that I know now with ketamine or just other treatment modalities, nutrition-based stuff that I would have loved to have tried with them at the time. But at the time, we were assuming that our doctors were giving us the best plan of action. We were just overwhelmed watching somebody that we loved go through that difficult of a time. So my health began to decline and started to experience panic attacks and anxiety. And then Thanksgiving Day 2017, he committed suicide after we tried to check him out of the hospital on the doctor's recommendations, after they claimed he was becoming institutionalized and wanted him to at least take one last shot at making a life work on his own outside of the hospital, which turned out to be a bad idea because he needed the support of the hospital. But all that to say, my brother and I lost our dad in a pretty dramatic way, and my anxiety piled on with pretty severe depression. That I'm much better now. It's hard to say, when that season ended. It was kind of a slow, gradual lifting. But I developed symptoms that nobody that I had ever talked to had experienced, and had trouble getting even family members to believe me. And this is where partly your and I stories cross. One of the weirdest symptoms I've had that still lingers a little bit is the harder I exercise, the more depressed I got, which is so backwards from what people say. They say as much as you can, get moving, get exercise, and that's going to help your body create endorphins and all these things. And I thought it was just, if I would go for a run, I thought it was just I would be in my head too much and thinking about this breakup that I had around the same time, and kind of rationalized it that way. And I reached out to people on Instagram, to which you graciously offered to be a running buddy, an exercise buddy.
Right.
You were smoking me for other reasons. You were more fit than I at the time. But it took me, maybe another year to realize that this wasn't just, too much alone time in my head when I go for runs, that this is something is happening when I exercise that is creating more stress. I know now that what developed during that time was stress caused a dysbiosis in my gut system. There's a yeast that can become overgrown called candida, and that kind of creates food intolerances. And so I had already cut out alcohol and gluten. I'm now on a much stricter diet to address it. But what happens is, this yeast causes all these toxins in your body. And when you exercise, I don't totally have it figured out yet. It either pulls, some toxins from your blood into your muscles as you're exercising, or vice versa, or it's releasing toxins from the muscles into the bloodstream that overwhelms the system. Okay. So it's been a crazy journey of not only mental health and learning how to regulate emotions through therapy and things like that, but also understanding the myriad number of systems in the body that can get out of whack from stress, and creating a disciplined lifestyle, from cutting out alcohol, sugar, breads, dairy, just trying to get back to a square one and into these things after that. But it's taken, so much patience and so many people and resources to understand how to get better, because the stress of that time, affected everything in my body.
Yeah, I can imagine that's been quite the journey, and learning more about that condition, and just finding that awareness about how your body responds to certain stimuli, whether it's food or exercise, like certain types of exercise, and like the amount of stress that it puts on your body. I know my partner, she's got this type of thyroid condition, and I know for certain people with thyroid issues, like if you're doing a type of exercise that's overly strenuous, that could also have negative impacts on the body. Probably not the same type of negative consequences you're describing, but similar circumstances where it might cause excessive inflammation.
Yeah, and that's partially what I've taken. If there's any silver lining to be gained, I wouldn't wish my condition on anybody, but what it has done is illuminate, like, maybe I'm way more sensitive than other people, but at least my experiences can help show, like, there is a correlation between, mental health and the things you eat or how hard you push your body. And so hopefully somebody else's condition is going to be different. But I've had friends certainly that, have started to tune in to the idea that maybe they don't have to be on as crazy a diet as me, but if I tell them how significant the reactions I have to food are, it at least helps them believe, like, okay, this is real, there's a cause. Maybe I should also be mindful of what I'm putting in to my body or doing with my body, even though it's not causing as immediate or direct of a reaction as Kendall's experiencing.
Sure. Yeah. And it's funny how, like, society thinks of mental health and physical health being exclusive, but mental health is physical health. It is part of the physical body. It does manifest itself sometimes in different emotions, which is part of the confusion there. But there are a lot of physical aspects to that, and it's a good reminder that everyone is different, and certain types of exercise or certain types of food are going to affect people differently, especially navigating all of those different emotional states.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I definitely sometimes can go a little hard in my exercise, and I know for some people I haven't necessarily been the best training partner, because I have my zone and that doesn't necessarily match everyone else's zone. So that causes a bit of disconnect, and I'm sorry to hear that you trying to keep up with me at my level was causing complications for you.
No, I mean, that's why you get a partner, is to, when that voice in your head says, let's just slow down and walk a bit, you need that social pressure to keep you jogging a little bit longer. So it was, so thankful to have the company. It was just, it was by no means related to you. I just had to listen to my body for long enough and figure out that.
And I'm sure you've been able to, adapt and, figure out what works better for you. So do you have like a workout routine that you do now that's more beneficial for you and like your health?
Yeah. I still have to stay away from most weightlifting. Running, I tolerate really well now that I'm on a much cleaner diet. I've been doing swimming to try to keep my upper body from deteriorating away. But I'm on, a very meat-heavy diet. It's maybe similar to somewhere between paleo and keto. It's like only eggs, meat, and vegetables. So very close to zero carbs, which means that the muscles can't store carbohydrates, and so there's a lot of muscle cramping. So weightlifting and even swimming, and I have to kind of work through some muscle cramps until they start to relax.
Right. So you're getting your carbohydrates primarily from vegetables, not so much from grains, right?
Yeah, vegetables, but I can't eat starchy vegetables, so no potatoes, no corn. So I'm sure getting some carbs, but it's just very, very low carb. I've cut out nuts again, which was a big source of carbs, but I'm testing with cutting that out to see how I feel.
Yeah.
But I've been just, longer, less high intensity exercise. I play a lot of disc golf, a lot of walks, a lot of runs, swimming, and that's kind of making me feel good. Yeah, I'm not shooting to PR my bench press like I was in college, even though that would be fun to try to do again. But it's kind of just been whatever form of exercise makes me feel the best. And, until I get to some other level of wellness, it's just not going to be a ton of weight training right now.
Yeah. And that's cool, So how do you get started like doing what you're passionate about? Like, I know you do a bit of writing and, that plays into your marketing role as well. Can you tell me about how you got into doing that?
Yeah, I started a blog at the beginning of the pandemic, partially as a creative exercise to, get to build a website and do some photography and design, just as something that I could pour my skills into. And then it's hard for me to remember what the impetus was to start writing. I was writing a lot about spirituality at the time.
Right.
I kind of, not through my family, but through my own choosing and youth group and stuff like that, grew up pretty Christian from kind of high school through, after college for a couple of years. And then trying to reconcile something just kind of pointlessly tragic happening, like losing the parent the way I did, trying to reconcile that with the things that I'd been told or come to understand about God's nature. There was just a huge kind of butting of heads, and I had to deconstruct my worldview and my belief system and kind of find a new way to interpret the world that had a model that allowed for this crazy kind of chaos and tragedy that I had experienced. And so I just found a lot of influential people in the mindfulness and meditation space. Comedian Pete Holmes was really big to me. He's got a book called Comedy, Sex, God that was really influential. From then I was listening to podcasts and people talking about using psilocybin and ketamine, different psychedelics for depression and mental health treatment. And, that coincides this world of spirituality and mental health treatment modalities. And so I just was kind of absorbing all of that, and it naturally was the stuff I wanted to talk about when I built this blog and wanted to start writing about it. So I don't feel as pulled to digest content about spirituality right now. I think there was a season where, because I was reconstructing my worldview so much, that I really was on my mind a lot. And now I'm still a spiritually minded person, but
right.
I think it's okay to kind of ebb and flow with how much we're plumbing the depths of the universe. And I'm kind of maybe taking a little bit of a breather right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I actually grew up Catholic as well. And, that has, that's adjacent to the Christian faith. It is a Christian faith, but, obviously Catholicism is very different from a lot of Protestant religions. And then I had a falling out of religious faith. I think that was partially due to me being more focused on like partying in college, and going to church just became less and less of a priority. And I was also raised in a family that was very conservative, and it definitely felt like something we had to do rather than something we wanted to do. That changed a little bit when I was in high school, and I got a little bit more interested in church by going to a youth group, and I played in a Christian rock band for a little bit, actually.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. I sort of found my own interests in it, separate from my parents, and like by attending some like non-denominational Christian conferences and summer camps, stuff like that. But then I had a falling out with my faith in college, and I eventually came back to it, first to Catholicism, then I joined a Presbyterian church for a few years. But now, after the sort of like during the pandemic, I started exploring other spiritual podcasts and like listening to different points of view on religion and spirituality. And I've sort of come to like my own conclusion that I can't really say like definitively if like Christianity is the right path for me. I definitely believe in some sort of higher power, whether that's God or just like the universe. I don't think like there is like this mighty being in the sky watching over everyone and judging everyone necessarily. And I think Jesus had a lot of really, great principles to teach the world, but was he the savior? I don't know. So that's sort of where I'm at. And, that has definitely caused some contentiousness with my parents over the years. But, I'm an adult now, I'm 35 years old, and they've sort of come to accept that that's, what I think in so many words.
Did you bring that to them, or did they at some point ask you, like, if you really believed, or how did they come to know that you kind of changed?
Well, they know that I've stopped going to church, but we haven't really had like an explicit conversation about like me not being a Christian. It's just sort of something we don't talk about. So maybe we should talk about it. Do you have any family members that like have expressed concern to you about like where you're at with your spirituality?
Not family members, but friends for sure.
Yeah.
My dad was probably the most religious, particularly within the Christian faith in my family. Him and I kind of came to Christianity around the same time. I was in high school, and he moved in with a family that was very Christian. His bipolar seasons came like every decade, and so he went through a bipolar longer seasons when we were maybe in middle school or something like that. Moved in with his family. That was really, really wonderful for him, being a support network and helping take care of him, but also introduced him to his faith. That was a really important part of who he was for the latter half of his life. So we shared that. I don't think that I had really deconstructed my faith, and wouldn't have shared that with him because it would have been skeptical in that time. But all that to say, I was kind of the oddity for becoming religious in my family. I took it more seriously than my mom did or any of my brothers did, I would say. But I had built a really lovely community in the church, and a lot of people, when they leave the church or have grievances with the church, they say, like, I loved Jesus, but it's his followers that are imperfect and aggravate me. And I kind of had the opposite experiences. I had a really lovely small group and church community that was important to me, but it was Jesus or this version of God that, this everything happens for a reason kind of ideology that really just didn't jive with me and was causing me a lot of internal strife. And so I've had friends that are very, very dear and very loving struggle with me sharing. And I don't so boldly say I'm 100% not a Christian, but I also don't feel pressure to identify that way. I think it's a larger the question of are you a Christian or not, saying yes or no feels very simplistic to me. I know for people still in the faith, your salvation depends on you saying yes in a way. So I get why that's a big question, but I think God is, to even use the word God is to put the idea of the creator in a box and make it feel like we understand what the hell that even means. And so I think those conversations are best suited for just that, conversations, and you can't fit it into a yes or a no. I'm a Southern Baptist, this or that. But those were hard conversations. I'm thinking very specifically of my friend Allison Hanchy, who lives in Denver, who is one of the kindest souls I've ever known. She went to, I don't think I can mention the country, but went to Africa to teach dance to girls that were affected by sex trafficking, to teach them to reclaim their bodies for something positive, and went with a Christian organization and would also teach these dancers about Jesus and shared a message of love with them. And so she is just a pure soul. And, I think we both cried over the phone as I was trying to explain what I believed, and she was trying to kind of, not let me stray away from what she understood to be the truth and this connection with God that has brought such value and healing to her life. And I'm sure she's seen provide value to these girls in Africa. So I think there were times where I, responded, was a little hot and, came in a little aggravated as I was deconstructing my faith, but there are certainly lovely people in the church that I still try to have very compassionate conversations with about where I'm at, or without apologizing too much or, attacking, but still being honest with the things that I believe are true and not true.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a difficult conversation to have because there's so much emotion loaded into it, especially when people, identify so much with who they are as a believer of a certain religion, whether that's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, etc. But I mean, you definitely see that more in America, especially with, people who identify as Christian, because, it sort of puts people into this box, like you said, putting God into a box, but putting people into this frame of identity where, like, if you're not with God or Jesus, like, there's something wrong with you. And it's really, I think you and I would both agree that, like, people don't exist in such, like, black and white terms. There's a lot more gray involved. And I think it's interesting how you say, like, you still feel like you are part of the Christian community, but you don't identify yourself as a Christian. And I know for a lot of people that's really hard to comprehend, like your friend. And it can be hard to, describe that to people who, think in such black and white terms.
Absolutely. And, the human animal loves groups, and we love distinctions and being right. And so, it's like you can't have light without dark. One kind of defines the other. And so it's hard for people to understand, being saved without there being a group that is not saved. There's got to be some qualification. And so, but we get very confident with what constitutes, the right in group. I think that same comedian Pete Holmes says, how funny it is that the right group always happens to be the one that we are in. How many denominations think they've got the scripture interpreted exactly the right way, and these knuckleheads over here are.
Hey guys, brief pause in the episode to tell you about some of the great businesses that support this podcast. First, we got Weight Train. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 10% off all weight train and Athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. And if you don't see something you want, email them at team@weighttrain.com and they will take your requests for new products. Visit Weight Train for all your gym gear needs. Next is True Nutrition. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 5% off all nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths, from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I personally recommend the cinnamon bun and toasted coconut flavors in the heavy strength, and I add them to waffles, oatmeal, protein shakes, and ice cream. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because the supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit truenutrition.com to supplement your workouts and your nutrition. Last is Hate Brand Goods. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 15% off all Hate Brand clothing and accessories. Their goat shorts and shirts are the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their clothing drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops that you're stoked on. Visit thehate.com, spelled HVIII, for clothing to remind the world that you're not dead yet and you're ready to kick today in the dick. Back to the show. So I want to shift gears a bit. I know you're really into dancing and you perform with different dance groups and you do that. Have you done that professionally as well, or is it just more of like a passion project type thing that you like to do?
Technically, I have received American dollars for providing dance services, but I would by no means consider myself a professional. It's even at the top level, it's hard to make it as a dancer as it is in any artistic profession. So it's always been, I've had my day job, and then dance has kind of been the passion. I think you run the risk of really burning out your passion if you try to do it 100% of your spare time, or you're trying to make it be the thing that feeds you and puts groceries on the table. So fortunately for me, I've experienced a bunch of injuries, so thank goodness I didn't ever try to make a living with dance. That would have been out of work for long periods of time. But yeah, I started after college and just found a couple of groups in Richmond, and then eventually through different social dance events around town, kind of built my own community that became this dance crew that we later gave a name to. But I was just explaining this to somebody, like our dance crew was just a community that had already formed, and we kind of gave ourselves the name so that we could perform at events every now and again, had something to call ourselves. But it's just been something that I've loved and kind of stokes my imagination as I watch dances on YouTube and stuff like that. And so it's just something that I love to do.
What's the name of your dance group?
The brand RVA on Instagram.
Were they a group before you joined them?
I think that I had taken, these were my community of dancers. I think it was around the time that I stepped away from dance because, around the time that I lost my dad, partially because like my anxiety was so bad that my sensitivity to sounds and nightclubs and people, like I just couldn't be in a nightclub.
Yeah.
But then even after that, like I was saying, dance was too much exercise and would cause me to get worse. And so I just stepped away from the scene for a couple of years probably, but then came back and reconnected with these folks, and maybe they had established the name by then, but pretty quickly as I was able to start coming out to events, Russie, one of the founders, said, of course, feel free to use this name. I mean, you're one of you've been wanting to do again for a long time. So that meant a lot to me. It's kind of an evolving group, and we've got some folks that are, I would still consider in the group that have moved away. You know, they'll come back and come to dance events, but it's kind of just this familial umbrella that, you know, even if you move away, I would still consider myself a part of this group.
Yeah, that's great. How are you now with you know, your sensitivities to the lights and sound and all that with
That's been behind me for a good while. I couldn't tell you the year that it went away, but maybe for 2019, I kind of was able to start going to venues and stuff like that again. Ironically, I did psilocybin magic mushrooms one time and came home from this nice nature walk and tried to play a computer game with my older brother, which is essentially a wartime simulation, these
Right.
first-person shooters, and I had a panic attack, and then my anxieties and sensitivities to stimuli, came back for like a week, and I was really nervous that like, oh no, I may have just regressed myself a good bit. But that was the lesson that some of these substances that I mentioned that are very potent for connecting with God or for the spiritual kind of experiences leave you in a very open state, and to take that seriously. So fortunately, that did not result in a long-term return of some of these anxiety symptoms. So yeah, I'm enjoying going out to house music clubs, and I was at a dance festival or a kind of hippie outdoor festival in Charlottesville last night, getting down to some music. So I've been able to return to that activity, which I'm very grateful for.
That's awesome, man. Looks like Daphne wants to say hello.
Hello, Daphne.
My dog Daphne. We've had her for about a year now.
So,
She's in a very playful mood. But yeah, I want to talk more about that psilocybin experience and the other forms of medication that you described, if you're open to that.
Absolutely, let's do it.
So you mentioned SSRIs for treating your dad's bipolar disorder, and I would imagine that you were probably prescribed SSRIs as well for your anxiety and depression. I personally I'm currently taking SSRIs for my depression. I had what I would consider a serious depressive episode back in October of last year. I got really overwhelmed with my anxiety, and I was feeling really depressed, mainly around me comparing myself to other people, and not really feeling satisfied with my job, and not really feeling a sense of purpose. And so I had to take some time off work, and my doctor recommended going on some SSRIs and sertraline, to be specific, which is the generic form of Zoloft. And I've been taking that, now for 8 months. And I feel like it's definitely been helpful. I know for some people it's not necessarily as helpful. And there are
kind
other
of a slow lift, like kind of hard to tell how much it was bouncing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I definitely feel like I can regulate my anxiety a little better. And like it's not like an overwhelming difference, but I guess I just feel a bit more level-headed. So like when certain things arise that are not ideal or complicated, I can respond better without instantly feeling defeated and like going into that like negative self-talk cycle. So that's been my experience. What's been yours?
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I didn't know it about you, and it's crazy how common it is that people are on SSRIs, and we don't
Yeah.
talk about it enough, I think. I Yeah, I had not been on, I wouldn't have identified with a mood disorder before losing my dad. It wasn't a chronic thing. I don't know all the specific medications that he had been on, but I mean, he was taking a lot and it was not making a difference in this season. I was prescribed Wellbutrin or bupropion, I think it's the generic name, which is technically not an SSRI. It's a different
Yeah.
category.
Yeah, I actually have that as well. I was prescribed that for anxiety. The sertraline is for depression. But I don't take the buzaprone really that often at all. I have it just in case like those anxious thoughts start to feel overwhelming, to like bring me back down to level. Yeah, I'm aware of that medication.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I've been wanting to write a post kind of compiling all the different treatment modalities that I'm aware of. And I wish I knew more about the specific SSRIs because I have friends that, very clearly there are two categories of SSRIs, at least ones that target one neurotransmitter, ones that target a different one. I don't want to guess at the names if I want to make myself look stupid, but my friend says, I respond really well to the category that target this transmitter instead of this one. And so I think people get intimidated like it's just throwing darts at a board to see which one works for you. And there is some truth to the trial and error, but there is also a methodical way of, okay, if this didn't work for you, let's try this other category. And that might be the ticket to really improving somebody's well-being. So I stuck it out longer than I think I wish I would have before I was open to trying medication. So I was in a pretty rough place. Maybe 9 months after my dad passed, I think I prescribed and started, and then was on them until maybe just a year ago when I started really taking this diet and vitamin supplementation approach, which seems to have way more effect over my really difficult symptoms than the SSRIs or the medication did. So I think I'm just an advocate of people having a plan and, let's try this for 6 months. If it is not getting you to where you want to be, try the next thing. And I wish I had done that sooner, and that, that applies to SSRIs or starting therapy if you've never tried it, or I did ketamine therapy and I've tried EMDR, desensitization, rapid movement, something like that. All these different things that it can be so easy to be stuck in a rut and say, well, I guess this is the life that I have to deal with now, or I need to give this treatment another year and a half to see if it does anything. No, you don't switch medications every month, but having a plan for if this doesn't work, this is the next thing I'm going to do.
Yeah. And I think having a healthcare provider who, understands what your needs really are and is supportive of you in that is really crucial. Sometimes people don't have that. And, I like to tell them, like, if the doctor you have isn't working for you, go to a different doctor. Like, obviously sometimes depending on the accessibility of different medical providers, that could be an issue. But, with modern technology these days, you can, see doctors online. There are other options to explore and other treatment options available to you.
An advocate of some, sorry to cut you off, an advocate of some kind is huge. I find that like a primary care physician, I do not feel like has the time or patience or the openness to listen to the types of symptoms I'm experiencing. Like for me, it was my mother who was a big support, and then I think a lot of people do have good relationships with therapists or psychiatrists specifically for medication management. But a family member for me was huge. Is somebody who's just going to always be here for you and help you think of the next thing to try.
Right. Yeah, and I guess
naturopaths. Sorry, I'm on a tear. But sometimes even great providers, if you go to a naturopath, they're only going to suggest naturopathic solutions. Or if you go to, a ketamine clinic, they're only going to suggest ketamine. And sometimes you need somebody who's not invested in any one camp to say, let's try these different avenues.
Sure. Sorry, I was just going to say, really what it comes down to is having, someone who is a support system for you in the way that you need. And you just described it perfectly. There are certain types of treatment that are great, there are so many options, but, they will only provide the type of treatment that they practice. So I think having that awareness of what your needs are so you can seek out the appropriate provider, or at least have someone else help you as a guide to figuring out what that should be, is really crucial. And in regards to some of those different treatments that you mentioned, I would think it would be helpful for you to further illustrate what that means. What is ketamine therapy? I know ketamine is this particular type of drug, but I think there could be some misunderstanding as far as what that is. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Ketamine is, there are 2, maybe 3 licensed ketamine clinics in Richmond, which for people listening is not a huge city. It's a city, but it is becoming more and more acknowledged from a medical standpoint as a very viable mental health treatment to try. And it's like a psychedelic light. It's used in veterinary sciences a lot as a sedative. As somebody who's done not a ton of psychedelics, but done psilocybin mushrooms a number of times, I found it to be a way more moderate experience. You go into this clinic, you've got a nice reclining chair, you get an IV, and they kind of give you increasing doses the first 2 or 3 times you go to see how you tolerate it. And there's a qualitative state of, they call it a dissociative. So that word kind of spooked me a little bit. They kind of talk about an out of body experience that, I was going to be looking at myself from above, floating on top of my body or something. I very much did not have that experience. Once I got to the full dose, it very much felt like when you go to a movie and it's one of those kind of roller coaster scenes, you just shut your eyes and it kind of not forces, but induces you into a state where you just naturally want to keep your eyes closed and see kind of this roller coaster of visuals going by. But it was always the case that I could, if I needed to, I could open my eyes and the room wasn't squiggling and squirming. It was just kind of this emotional and visual experience as I closed my eyes. But with some people that talk about using psychedelics to treat mental health conditions, with other substances like psilocybin specifically, they talk about having a spiritual experience as the thing that heals you or helps you look at your troubling life circumstances in a different way. And ketamine is different in that they want to get you to this kind of near spiritual experience, but that's more so just a measure of knowing that they're giving you enough of the medicine to induce the chemical reaction in the brain that seems to make ketamine work as a therapy. So it's not dependent on you, talking to the mother tree of life. It's just kind of to get you up to this place, and then you have 6 to 10 treatments that are, for me, were pretty pleasant. If you've never done drugs or smoked weed before, it might be a little jarring to experience that lack of control, but was a very pleasant and relatively mild experience to me. But the bigger thing to highlight here is the numbers for people that describe going into depression remission is 8 out of 10. It's a bananas success rate compared to SSRIs, which are 25% or something like that. Now, some people do require booster treatments, and it's still pretty inaccessible from a financial standpoint. It's pretty expensive. But if I had tried multiple SSRIs and was really in a rough place with depression, and there was something out there that was claiming 8 out of 10% success rate for depression remission, that's something I want to know about.
Yeah. And what benefits have you seen from doing that treatment?
So for me, I think I was, part of the 2 out of 10. The first treatment I had, I experienced euphoria after the treatment and the next day some. I didn't experience the same euphoria the subsequent treatments. The experience of the trip itself was very pleasant, but I think what was causing my mental health symptoms are so much related to this mind-gut connection and this kind of probiotic yeast imbalance that I'm treating medicinally with nutrition.
Okay.
So I don't think that an SSRI or something like ketamine, we're going to be able to totally override what is the cause of my symptoms as I understand them. That being said, I'm happy to have tried it and to know that I was open to the treatment and can now share about that with people who, maybe I don't think the majority of people who experience depression or anxiety have the gut imbalance the same way that I do. And so I think it is a very viable treatment for a lot of people that are looking for something new to try.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that is part of growth, right? You tried something, it didn't work out, but you did learn something from it.
For sure.
You learned that it's not for you, but you now have that knowledge that you can share with other people, and hopefully someone else might be better suited to it, and they'll have you to thank for it.
For sure, I hope so.
Yeah.
And we're all going to have to try stuff, and some of that stuff's not going to work. That's part
Right.
of the process.
Right. I know you were also taking some CBD, and you were involved with some CBD businesses. Are you still in that?
I'm not. I still have CBD here, and that, similar to how you were talking about, you've got a medication that works kind of just as need arises. CBD was something for me that if I was particularly anxious or having some kind of a day, I would take CBD and feel a much stronger effect than I would on any other day where I was feeling normal. So there was some real use case for me that, when whatever it is, my brain or systems are inflamed from stress, CBD would calm that down a good bit. I was in a CBD business trying to create a product with 2 partners, and stepped away from that partially just because from an e-commerce or business project perspective, there are so many regulations that I was starting to become worried that this might not be the best product to try to hitch my skills to, as well as just wanting not to spend my free time on my side project, when I was really stressed out and needed to just care for myself. Sometimes it was nice to have this passion project to focus on, but I think I got to a place where, nope, I need to reel it back in again and just kind of have time for me. But
Sure.
The other founders tried to push on with the project for a little longer, and just in the past month or 2, there are really insane kind of corrupt and greedy laws in the CBD market that are pushing small local CBD makers out of the market for these big tobacco or cannabis brands that are able to acquire a limited number of expensive licenses to sell in the state. So the main partner that was kind of the founding member of our little partnership moved short term to Hawaii to try to sell some product up there because it just became not viable in Virginia.
Okay. Well, sorry to hear that, but sounds like you made the right decision. Are you working on any other projects now? Anything else that you're working on the side in addition to your main job?
Not a ton. I've got a couple posts that I want to write, particularly about some of these mental health treatments that I've, have written 70% of and just kind of took a break. Or there are definitely things that I feel like I want to be 100% better so I can write and feel like I'm justified to give advice, which of course is an erroneous line of thinking. I need to put out some of these thoughts and give them to people, even as I'm still on my healing journey, because for most people that can often be a lifelong thing. But I was supposed to go to Scotland in a month to keep traveling, but I decided to back out of that to focus on this diet and health. And so it's just kind of my job and trying to spend my time with friends and community and doing the things that make me feel the best. And right now, I don't feel the need to produce much of anything, whether that's business or art to put out. I've posted much less on social media. I'm kind of just, I might spend some days doing nothing but playing computer games. And if that's what feels right, that's what feels right. But trying to get out dancing and just be with friends. And that's kind of feels like what I'm supposed to be doing with my free time right now. That's
cool, man. I mean, it's like you said earlier, there are different seasons of life where, it ebbs and flows. I've been there myself. There are certain times where you feel more inspired to create stuff and certain times where you just need to sit on the couch and watch Netflix.
Absolutely. Rewatching Stranger Things right now. A beautiful way to spend the day.
It's really good. With you talked about how you're practicing self-care right now. So sitting on the couch and playing video games, going out dancing. Are there any other self-care practices that you're focusing on right now?
I mean, this decision to not travel was a big one. I've gotten in this community of a really awesome group of people, these digital nomads that are just working remotely as they travel the world. And was even trying to keep in touch with the girl that I met on one of these trips, which is logistically insanity inducing to try to date a nomad. But I just realized, I'm going to feel better if I'm at home taking care of myself. And so backing out of this trip was a financial loss as well as a reset to my expectations. But fortunately, I have a lot of family and friends here, and I've so far been good at intentionally realizing, okay, I don't have to be in Lisbon, Portugal to be happy. I've got beautiful weather in the summer and friends that care about me here. So that has been the biggest tangible practice right now. It's just hard decision making about what is the best for me in this season, and doesn't mean I won't travel again. But that was a huge one.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of getting tattoos, as you can tell. I've gotten a lot since we last saw each other.
Have you now? Okay.
Including this one, I think. I'm in a season right now where I can't afford to get tattoos, and that's a good thing because I have a wedding coming up in October, and there are just other priorities that need to be paid for, and it's important to have that awareness and really take care of what you need to take care of. And I know traveling is at least especially in the past couple of years has been really crucial for you and your life experience, and it's really great that you had the flexibility to do that, to be a nomad and get to work from different countries, which is, I'm sure you've got some great experiences from that. Are there any experiences from your travels that you'd like to share?
There's definitely been a lot of really cool visual experiences. I mean, I was in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica for 6 weeks, and the beaches around there are just really incredible. let's see, I've done 3-month-long trips so far. I was in Oaxaca, Mexico. I was in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, and then most recently Santa Marta, Colombia. I don't want to be a broken record. Santa Marta was very difficult from a health perspective. It was the first trip where I was like, I started to ask these questions: if something isn't right, I need to revisit the drawing boards.
Sure.
I don't need to harp on that. But I just think maybe something I can mention that'll have some nuggets of wisdom is there are lots of life coach types in these groups. There's this girl who was burnt out in med school and is now a coach helping other people transition from the medical industry, from being doctors if they find that non-sustainable. And there was a really cool guy from New Zealand who owned his own kind of circus talent agency for a while and was hiring performers for different festivals and events, and is now coaches artists how to scale their business online if they kind of lack that business savvy but are really good at creating art. And even these folks who seem very inspirational, you get to know them and you realize everybody's a person, and these people are posting beautiful things on Instagram, but you come to find so and so had an emotional breakdown in this city, and right. We all are no surprise, posting the best versions of life on Instagram, but the problem's going to follow you wherever you go. And
yeah,
I've been really inspired watching people who, I don't want to reveal too much, but there's a girl that I've met who struggles with OCD, and we were in a country where you can't flush toilet paper, which is somebody who does not like the idea of germs is like a for real issue.
Yeah.
And so, me traveling, even though I have taken a step back from travel, and it feels like not the right thing for me to do right now, to know that it's okay to travel if you're, still dealing with a mood disorder or you've got some health condition that makes it harder to travel. It's sometimes we have to push ourselves to do things, and I definitely have done that over the past couple of years. I think the next 6 months to a year might be a time where I rest a little bit, but I've seen beautiful places in these countries, but I've also gotten to know really, really fascinating, cool people. And like I said, gotten to see that even the most inspiring people, everyone has a story, and even the folks traveling the world are dealing with something.
Yeah, I bet that was really grounding for you, especially with everything that you're dealing with, and it definitely helps, I'm sure, to make those connections with other people when, everyone's going through, difficult circumstances, but you're still having this shared beautiful experience together.
Yeah, and I think, one of the gifts that I can give is just not being somebody who likes to bottle things up. And so if I'm going through something, I have, very little to no shame about posting in the group Slack, like, hey, I'm having a not a great day. Would love to take a walk with somebody. And then you blown away time people, I would love to take a walk and talk with you. And then, it feels, the small self might lie to you and say, oh, you're harshing people's buzz, but you come to realize that can be a way to create a deep connection with somebody on day one. And so, I try to not hide emotions as much as I can and just let people, receive me and care for me. And, I know that I'm so happy when I get to be that for other people. And so trying to remember that it's a gift to let people be useful to you as well.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think vulnerability leads to more vulnerability, and you create that safe space by sharing of yourself so other people can feel more comfortable sharing themselves. And, I definitely try to do that as well. And I appreciate you sharing of yourself with me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wish we'll have to hang out and I can ask you more questions. I feel like I don't want to interview you, but I'm so used to just firing questions back like a normal conversation. So I would love to hear more.
We'll definitely talk more about it, but we can start to move towards wrapping up. I just have a few more questions that I want to ask you.
Sure.
And then I'll get you out of here. Can you tell me what your morning routine looks like these days?
Oh no, I am not a model morning routine person.
It doesn't have to be in the morning. Like whenever you get up
To start the day,
what does the routine look like?
let's use the best day out of a random sampling of 5 days. I get up, I eat a breakfast of eggs and bacon usually, or eggs and some kind of protein every morning. I live about a mile away from a park, Forest Hill Park, and so I try to start my day either a lap around just my street, or if I have more time before any meetings, take a drive and do a walk around the park. Big glass of water. I kind of jump straight into work. A lot of people love a big morning routine where they've got time to think and have the coffee and all these things. And
yeah,
fortunately, my work isn't so stressful that I don't feel like I need a huge buffer time. And I work from home, so I can hop right on the computer here. But yeah, I don't have a ton in the morning other than I've mentioned how important eating the right meal to start the day for me is, and some kind of walk if I can, and then I'm good to start working.
Yeah, that's nice. I definitely agree with you. Like, I do have a tendency to jump into work. But since we got a dog last year, I at least have to like walk around the block with her. And that definitely helps me to sort of like decompress before I start my day, wake up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And, then I'm like getting my vitamins and supplements before I have my coffee. And just really getting into it. You talked about some like vitamins you take as well. Are there any supplements that you take on a daily basis?
Yeah, and this is maybe worth mentioning. I don't know that I gave myself enough credit. I think I struggle a lot with, struggling with telling myself that I'm lazy. And really, I'm not lazy. I have dealt with brain fog as a significant symptom over the past couple of years, and it's easy to get down on yourself like I'm not as productive as I would like to be, but that doesn't mean it's a lack of trying. And similarly, some of these supplements I take are essential to me healing, but sometimes they can make me feel different symptoms. Some can make me a little foggy, and so I try to. I don't exercise in the morning. I don't take most of my supplements until mid-afternoon, and that's kind of by design because I want to have some productive work hours and then start. If I go for a run or I take supplements that have the chance to make me, a little cloudy or harder to work, I try to save those in the afternoon. So it's intentional. But I have worked with this company called True Hope, which is they provide this multivitamin, multi-mineral that is really designed for people with mood disorders, and they're big leaders in this brain gut connection space, and they have really amazing support, unlike any other mental health or supplement company where they, if you just purchase a product, they will call you and say, hey, what's the situation? This is what the dosage we recommend, but how it can interact with other SSRIs or medications if you're on that. So that vitamin supplement was the first thing that I noticed start making my exercise problem be better. This thing where the harder I exercise, the more depressed I would get. I started taking these and I would go for a run or a jog and realize my mind was calmer.
What is the product?
It's their flagship product is called Empower Plus, and I've looked at the ingredients and it's not wholly dissimilar from other kind of broad multivitamin, multi-mineral supplements. I think they balance it in a way that, for whatever reason, they've found is ideal for mood disorders. But what they do best is, I think they will probably recommend taking higher levels of a multivitamin like this than your traditional, men's daily might. And they have products specifically that, probiotic supplements and other things that help with the condition that I'm dealing with. And, there's a support woman specifically, this woman, Catherine, who my mom has been talking to at this company for 10, 15 years. And so it's a level of support, speaking how we did about the importance of advocates and trusted people that are knowledgeable. This company really nails that. So I take True Hope multivitamins. I take antifungals that help with this yeast imbalance in my stomach. And a lot of that's just coconut oil, garlic. Some things are just herbal. Some companies sell more specific kind of capsule products. But a probiotic I take every day, vitamin D, omega fish oils, and those are kind of the main ones.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, on my point of my system is more sensitive than some, but I stopped taking some of these supplements because I was frustrated that I didn't know what was causing what. I ate a food that made me depressed. My mom encouraged me to get back on the regimen. I started taking coconut oil, and within hours, I could feel the depression become under control, and then went away in the next day or two. So my body's reactions told me that this stuff is real. The stuff you put in your body really affects the way systems work. I've never been more convinced of that. So it's the grocery store is a pharmacy, as some say.
Is there any specific type of coconut oil that you use?
They say just extra virgin cold pressed, I think. I don't know what a low quality coconut oil would be, but I look for those terms specifically. There's no one brand that I think anybody swears by is the best.
Cool, man. Is there a particular quote or tip you use that inspires you to keep going and stay positive despite personal hardships?
It's not so much a mantra, but just remembering that fear and lack of hope is a symptom. And so, when I'm having a really rough day, it feels like this is going to be my plight forever. And it's hard to remember that, a week before that, you were not hopeless and you did not have this feeling. And so in those moments, trying to remember, okay, even though it seems like, what if I never get to eat normal or have alcohol again or do all these things, that I won't feel the way I feel about those limitations in a week. I will have hope again. And then remembering that on hard days, trying to tell myself, okay, what is my job today? Is my job right now to troubleshoot my plan of care, or is my job today to just get through today and know that I will feel better tomorrow or the next day, and then I can, address the fact that do I need to change medication or cut out this food? But sometimes when I'm overwhelmed, I'm like, oh, I have to figure out everything right now. When it's like, maybe, okay, you'll have the same information tomorrow. Right now, you need to watch Stranger Things and just let this episode pass and know that your job today is just get through, and tomorrow we'll feel better and we can rework the plan.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. There are certain times when, I'm thinking of everything that's on my to-do list, and I'm like, if I don't do it right now, it's not going to get done. But, it is important to take the steps back and, really put it in perspective, just focus on what you need to do today. And, the stuff on your to-do list will eventually get done in the order of, what's the top priority for right now. I think that's great. And who is someone in your life or someone who inspires you to stay positive and keep a positive mindset?
One of the guys that I did this CBD project with, his name is Dave Robinson, and I was trying to find his Instagram handle so I could shout him out. But he is somebody that I did life coaching sessions with, and has been really impactful for me. He incorporates breath work into rewriting these narratives that we tell ourselves about how bad our life is going, to kind of reclaim our own stories. And just recently, he's somebody who is very fit and has been at times easy for me to be like, yeah, I'd be positive too if I felt like my body wasn't at odds with me so much with my physical struggles. But just the past couple of days, he's been sharing, that he also goes through these bouts of negative emotions, and just welcoming, anybody struggling with suicidal ideation to reach out to him, and he'll, do a free story work call with. And so he's been somebody who has been positive for me through some life coaching and story work sessions we did together. But I just constantly see in the world that he's a live wire. I mean, he's a very opinionated person on social media, and so
right,
invites lots of positive and negative reactions to folks. But he's helped me tremendously and helped hundreds of people, and I see him just constantly doing his best to impact the community that he can in the way that he feels called. So Dave Robinson, you're my boy. I love you.
Yeah, I know Dave as well. He's a great guy. I haven't had a chance to see him or talk to him for the past 2 years, but he is definitely someone I'm interested in having on the podcast.
You should, man. I mean, he is.
Yeah, I know he's had quite the journey himself in his personal growth, from personal training to now, personal coaching with story work. So
yeah, left a finance career, if I remember correctly. I mean, you guys would have fun to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Lastly, what is one of your go-to meals that helps you feel your best? I know nutrition is really important to you. That's the primary treatment for you in treating your gut. So, yeah. What's good for you?
Man, I wish that I was a fancier culinary artiste, but it's the simple stuff. I go buy top sirloin steaks at Costco with my steak seasoning, cook that up on the grill. I like to oven roast broccoli with some lemon, some butter, maybe some Brussels sprouts or cauliflower if I'm feeling fancy, and that's kind of the bare bones. I'll mix in chicken or salmon every now and again, but hormone, antibiotic-free red meat and vegetables. That's 50% of my diet these days.
Good stuff, man. So if people want to follow along with you, see what you're working on, follow you on your travels, where can they find you?
I don't post a ton, like I said, but Instagram at Kendall New. It's my first and last name. Hopefully I'll keep posting the little snippets of music and dance stuff that I'm doing, or if I ever publish a new post, that's the first place I'll post it. So yeah, I would love anybody that liked anything on my story to follow or reach out with questions about anything we've talked about. I'd love to have more conversations with folks.
Awesome. Kendall, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here. I'm happy to know you, and looking forward to more conversations in the future.
You as well, brother. I'm happy to get this time with you and look forward to more conversations, and best of luck with the podcast.
Thank you, man.
All right, take it easy.
You too. Hey guys, thanks for checking out our podcast. I hope you got a lot out of it and it was helpful for you in your personal growth journey. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please do so on your preferred podcast provider. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Stay blessed and keep the PMA. Later.